Namaskar, Anyong Hasanika. This is Sonu Trivedi, Director of the Swami Vivekanand Cultural Center at the Embassy of India in Seoul, with you all today at the fifth session of the workshop, a truly masterclass on facets of India-Republic of Korea partnership, organized by Embassy of India in association with various Indian and Korean institutions. Starting from September 1st, we have discussed various themes covering Republic of Korea's new Southern Policy Plus and India's Act East policy in the Indo-Pacific region, overcoming COVID-19 pandemic, a business perspective, changing socio-economic landscape in India and ROK, and renewable energy powering the future. Today, we are before you at this international forum to reflect upon the artificial intelligence policies in India and Republic of Korea, to understand its social benefits and potential threats, regulatory mechanisms, legal and ethical issues related to artificial intelligence, and to identify areas of convergences and learning opportunities for both countries. To discuss this critical issue, we have with us today two very distinguished speakers, best and brightest minds from India and Republic of Korea amidst us in this panel. Ms. Anna Roy, who is the Senior Advisor at Niti Aayog, along with the presence of Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Republic of Korea. We are also extremely privileged to have partnered with Niti Aayog from India and the Presidential Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution for organizing this very important session. Before we begin the session formally, let me call upon Ambassador of India, Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, for her remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sonu. Ms. Anna Roy, Senior Advisor of Niti Aayog. All friends who are joining us both from India and from Korea today. Annyeong Shimnika, namaste to all of you. I am really excited about the session that we have today. Artificial intelligence has become the linchpin of the economy that we are, of the world that we are living in today. And I think the perspective which is brought to bear on this, on the use and the application of this technology by India and Korea offer areas of convergence and of divergence. These are partly because of the nature of the economies that we have, and partly because of the nature of the human resource that we have. I have seen from personal experience in the identical sectors, when we are looking at, say, the automobile sector, when I see the factory spaces of automobile manufacturers here in Korea, and I see the factory spaces of automobile manufacturers back home in India, how very different they are. The outfit in Korea is so heavily automated with hardly any human beings on the factory floor. In India, on the other hand, you see the impact of AI, but at the same time, you see a far greater presence of human resource. And I think that is in itself an illustration of the kind of differences between India and ROK. India has the advantage of a huge demographic dividend, which we are experiencing and which we will continue to benefit from over the next, at least for the next 30 odd years. Korea, on the other hand, is seeing the impact of a declining and an aging population. So that's a challenge that is being faced. And this, I think, is a fundamental axiom which is informing the nature of the AI policies that are being crafted by the government of India and the government of the Republic of Korea. I hope very much that in the course of the upcoming session, we will not only be able to understand what is it that is the goal, the focus, the priorities, and the expected play out of the policies in India and ROK, but we will also be able to discern where are the areas for Indian and Korean companies and institutions to be able to leverage each other's strengths and work together to good effect, so that we are truly able to make the most of the special strategic partnership that we enjoy, and the intimacy of the business and the scientific relationship that we enjoy. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation ahead, and I hope that there will be many ideas that we will be able to follow through on and take up formally through the government channels, both with the government of India and with the government of Korea. Thank you all so much, and looking forward to hearing both of you speak. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks and initiating the discussion today. With this, we move over to our speaker from India. But before that, when we talk about the artificial intelligence policies in India, friends, we can say that India's national strategy for artificial intelligence was announced in 2018. The strategy, called as AI for All, combines the economic potential of artificial intelligence with social development and inclusive growth. To quote from Niti Aayog's discussion paper on national strategy for artificial intelligence, uh, uh, to quote from the discussion paper, while evolving the national strategy for AI, the underlying thrust was to identify applications with maximum social impact, a willingness to learn from the best of the world when it comes to the recent technology advancements in AI, and leveraging approaches that democratize access to and further development of artificial intelligence. Friends, India's digital footprint has seen tremendous growth. In order to solve social problems, Indian startups are growing and developing artificial intelligence solutions in education, health, agriculture, financial services, and in the sector of infrastructural development. The government is also moving different programs towards the objective of technical infrastructure. Different agencies and artificial intelligence institutes, including sectors such as the policy structures and programs that instill such skills, are also being developed. With a little more drive towards resources and frameworks that boost its development, it is hoped that Indian artificial intelligence market, which is still regarded as emerging, can certainly take a leap. To discuss more about artificial intelligence ecosystem of India, let me call upon Ms. Anna Roy, who is a senior advisor at Niti Aayog and a 1992 batch officer of the Indian Economic Service. She was a lecturer at University of Delhi and the Energy Research Institute before joining the Economic Service. In the government, she has worked in the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Civil Aviation, and the Niti Aayog. She has held various positions like Deputy Director, Joint Director in Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, and also Ministry of Civil Aviation during the period from 1996 to 2012. She was officer on special duty to the Finance Minister and the Finance Secretary during 2009 to 2012. She has also served as Joint Secretary in the Department of Financial Services. Ms. Roy has worked in important sectors like infrastructure reforms, public-private partnerships, the financial sector, and the banking sector. At the Niti Aayog, she heads the frontier technologies and data management and analysis verticals. In this role, she has led teams which have brought out major reports like National Strategy on Artificial Intelligence, Blockchain, the Indian Strategy, Approach Paper on Eravat, Responsible AI Principles and Enforcement Mechanism, and Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture. Ms. Roy also heads the Women Entrepreneurship Platform, a NITI flagship that works towards developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem for women. Ms. Roy, it's a personal pleasure and delight to welcome you for this session. Floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trivedi. My greetings to Her Excellency Ms. Shripriya Ranganathan and Dr. Lee and I really compliment her for her excellent presentation. After her such a good presentation and the interventions made by Dr. Trivedi, I don't know whether I will be able to add much value to the discussion, but I will try my level best. So if I'll with that, I'll share my screen. 1 second. So as Dr. Lee and some of the things which I will say will be kind of overlapping with what Dr. Lee has said. But then for the narrative, I think I will try to not repeat everything and just touch upon it so that the continuity of thought does not break. When we talk about frontier technologies or emerging technologies, as you may have it, we generally refer to the fourth industrial revolution, which is cyber physical, where the digital has really made inroads in our physical world and thus increasing the productivity. So this is a very disruptive phase of technology that we are going through today. And we are still at very early stages of market adoption cycle. If we refer to the various technologies in this phase, for human control to human in the loop drive is something which we need to strive for and which we are all working towards. Frontier technologies, however, outpaces the ability of regulators and policy makers to adapt, and to remain ahead of the curve is a challenge, but nonetheless something which needs to be done continuously. So when we talk about Industry 4.0 technologies, it's really a bouquet of a wide variety of technologies, whether machine learning, IoT, blockchain, even UAVs, AI, AR, VR, cloud computing. Together, they can be put to very good use and have the potential to really improve the ease of living, ease of doing business, as well as the ease of governance. Through improved planning, through increased engagement, higher efficiency, cost saving, overcoming various barriers. Coming to artificial intelligence, Government of India really sees this as the tool for inclusive growth. And the view of the government is that this could be the single largest technology revolution of our times, with the potential to disrupt almost all aspects of human existence. And if we want to leverage it, we need to look at, as I said earlier, the human in the loop approach, and to see how it can help increase productivity in different spheres of life. As a lead practitioner of AI, Professor Andrew has been saying that AI is this new electricity. It will transform every industry and create huge economic value across board. So it is not restricted to any particular sector. Because of this cross-sectoral and interdisciplinary nature of this technology, it has in store far greater good than the previous phases of industrial revolution that we have witnessed. The recent advancements in AI have the potential to solve for unique challenges that a country like India faces, providing access to quality health facilities, inclusive financial growth, real-time advisory to farmers, building smart and efficient cities to address rapid urbanization. So while our interest may align in certain respect, Korea, with its the nature of its systems, its regulatory landscape, the size of the country compared to India, I think there would be some differences. We are much behind Korea where manufacturing productivity is concerned. We have far more problems in the social sector, which are characterized by public goods. So our focus, though manufacturing is one of the areas, but our focus is more on using AI, leveraging AI to overcome some of these problems that the country has been facing, age-old problems in social sectors. In 2018, when Niti Aayog released the AI strategy, national strategy on AI, the landscape which we faced with was, several studies which pointed towards significant economic potential of AI. Also, it pointed towards the social sector lagging in terms of investment. If you, at that time, we saw, as per a McKinsey research, research was really bottom line driven. So sectors like financial services, even telecommunication, manufacturing, they were receiving more investment and more focus compared to other sectors which were education and all, where they were characterized by public goods. And the third thing which we felt was India, besides having a huge lot of problems which could be solved using AI, it also had huge resources, IT-based resources, which could be leveraged for AI research. So what we felt that if we solve for India, we actually could solve for 40% of the world, which were facing similar kind of problems. So India, in this landscape, we brought out the strategy for AI, and as Dr. Trivedi said, this was called the AI for all, basically indicating that using the technology for inclusive growth. And AI for all meant that not developing the technology as per se that, okay, we are leaders in AI tools or algos or what you may have, but to look at the outcome and to see how many of our problems we are able to solve and bring the benefits of AI to the larger ecosystem, larger populace. So that is why AI for all, and it aimed to realize the potential of economic and social benefit that the technology offered. So coming to the national strategy on AI, the framework which was presented was to identify priority sectors where the government could take the lead, because with scarce public resources, you cannot spread your resources very thin, but there were some areas where private sector may not be so forthcoming. So in those areas, the initial lead would need to be taken by the government. The push has to be from the government, and we identify these sectors as the health, agriculture, education, mobility, and infra. So when we speak about mobility, it is more about, managing transportation and not the driverless car kind of a mobility. And when we talk about infra, that is also to manage more optimum use of infrastructure and development of infrastructure. Primarily, India had 100 smart city mission programs. So primarily, promoting the development of the smart cities. The action steps which were proposed first was to facilitate research and innovation. In this area, it was proposed that the government should fund and set up a few main centers which would focus on core research, basic research, which are the building blocks of AI. And for the lab to the marketplace kind of approach, another structure more lightweight was proposed, where the industry was supposed to take the lead, of course, with co-funding and support from the government in various forms, which would be using the tools developed to kind of curate them for domain-specific problems, and complete the entire spectrum between the basic research institutes and the applied research institutes. The second thing was to guide innovation. For that, both promote moonshot challenges and have systems in place which would identify moonshots and also implement them, and see that these mechanisms help in achieving the problems faced by the moonshots, as well as have a ecosystem which promotes the startups to solve for the problems being faced, and where we can leverage our very robust startup ecosystem to solve many problems and bring in the innovation. The third area was, of course, the responsible management of AI. And here it was, how can we identify the flip side of the technology, bring awareness to it, and put in systems in place so that early on we are bringing in those methods which enable responsible use of AI and also addresses the problems, as well as have systems in place to ensure that we minimize the risk involved. The last was about international collaboration and make it multidisciplinary. We have a concept in place about International AI for All Alliance, and how India can kind of, take the lead in this space, bring other countries along, and focus on the use of AI for the larger good. With that, I come to a little bit more on how we have proposed to facilitate research and innovation. First of all, data is crucial. but and India is one of the most data-rich countries, but raw data, whether the data is available for general research, it is not clear. To make data available and also to have the intelligent layer over the data so that it is usable was the challenge that we identified. And in this regard, we have been taking several steps since then, since the release of the strategy. One of the things is to develop large biobanks so that large scale research is enabled through this. Cancer Biobank is one of the projects where we have endeavored to provide access, availability at affordable rates for this kind of data, because as of now, the only data which is internationally available is Caucasian based, largely Caucasian based, and cancer is a worldwide problem. So this is one project which we have been steering. Second is developing digital infrastructure, which will, the platformization really, which will enable integration, sharing, and access to data. And that was seen to kind of, help promote innovation, a stack approach, if you may have. And India has really, in the space of financial sector, through the India stack, it has been demonstrated both domestically and globally that how much we have been able to achieve through this stack approach. So have these stacks, sector-wise stack. You cannot have a common stack. You need to have a sector-wise stack. So whether it is agriculture, whether it is health, so each sector-wise stack also are being developed. Example has been given on AgriStack. Next is about accessing data. So while, two types of data, one is public data, more aggregated, the other is more individual data, which is required for AI. So I spoke about the individual data. The need is also have a platform which makes sense of the aggregated data. So National Data and Analytics Platform is a initiative of NITI Aayog in that respect, which is a user-centric platform, and we try to identify first the use case, then identify the data available, and then put the data in a taxonomy which enables various intersectoral data to talk to each other and get insights. So this is a very user-based platform that NITI has launched, and this we are presently working on. The public launch is sometime next week, next year, early next year. And this is something which we hope will will define the next stage of data, which will be more user-driven. The National AI Marketplace is the concept which the National AI Strategy had mooted, where the marketplace concept was proposed not only for data, but various other services in the value chain of developing AI, whether it is solutions, whether it is annotation, whether it is models being developed. So the data marketplace is something which we are working on the annotation and model marketplace as well as solution. Also, we have given a blueprint and we are working on fleshing that out. We feel that through this approach only we will be able to democratize not only access to infrastructure, but also access to new innovations, because it will give visibility of what is available, what can be used. And this is something which will really help government take the lead on being the biggest adopter, because one of the roles which was given to government was to adopt new technology and be the market maker in this space, which was seen as an important function to promote innovation. Availability of compute infrastructure in a country like India, perhaps in Korea, this may not be such a big problem, but India, given its scale and diversity, it is necessary to provide easy access to compute infrastructure. So this is a paper which we had developed and we had released, and presently the principles of this compute infrastructure are being implemented by different wings of the government. The other major thing which NITI had taken on in collaboration with iSpirit, which is a company, a technology-based social purpose company is consent-based data sharing. Because unless you enable frameworks in place to share data, you will not be able to leverage the benefit of this new technology. Now, ensuring that you are able to address the privacy concerns, other concerns, concerns of misuse, concerns of bias, how can you still empower the data owner, who is the individual? So this is the architecture where we are going forward in a big way to enable data sharing. And when we talk about AI for all and a larger space of digital inclusion, this is the roadmap which we are taking, both within the country, and now the dialogue has been taken to other countries. And this is one area where we would hope to have, start a dialogue with Korea to discuss how this framework can be the architecture can be considered by Korea for adoption, because this is where the real empowerment lies of an individual to make use of its data, to ensure that the individual data is not used by only the big tech company, where the individual is the owner and the individual stands to benefit, and the ecosystem by and large itself will benefit by sharing this data, because only by sharing can we make this data available for innovation and further research. So this is one area which I would like to underline. And also, since the Indian embassy is on this call, and the Korean government officials are there, I would like to flag this particular point for further discussion between NITI and any agency in the Korean government which is dealing with data issues. Also, in the research landscape, there has to be a clear mandate. What will the industry do? What will the academia do? What is the time frame? Is it a long term? If it is a long term haul, then of course you have to bring in the university. Industry is more at more immediate and early returns. So this is where the initial framework which I spoke about, basic research and applied research. So applied is something where industry will play a bigger role, and basic is something where university and academia and other such centers will play a bigger role. And this is where also, when we talk about academia, we are looking for international collaboration. So this, again, the same thing about basic research and applied research, which I just said, so I will not repeat on this. And coming to the applied, again, the applied will be more on social applications of AI, identifying problems, having the domain expertise also, so that the tools, AI tools, are kind of contextualized given the domain problems. And whether it is precision farming, whether it is healthcare diagnostic, personalized education, road and safety, given the Indian conditions, these are some of the areas where the applied side will play a big role. Coming to the moonshot challenges, there are several problems which India faces. One, of course, is languages. We have a huge number of Indian languages, and by some estimates, it is said that 90% new users are expected to be Indic language users, with the reach of mobile phone data usage in the hinterland of the country. This is what we see, a rise in data and use of internet by Indic language users. And this is where comes the potential for having natural language processing. And this is one of the areas which has been identified as a moonshot. If we can crack this, this will be a great use, not only for the technology NLP as a whole, which can of course be then replicated in other, the structure can be replicated in other countries who have similar problems of languages, multiple languages, so that the process of development also of the tools is not replicated. And with Indic language also, basically that will allow native language operations with higher accuracy. The second thing about is in the health sector. One of the examples which I have taken in my presentation is tuberculosis. Similarly, there are various other such endemic. We are now faced with COVID. Similarly, development of vaccines, development of medicines is another area which is really affects worldwide and is an area which could be identified as a moonshot. And countries need to come together to undertake research, and we need to have frameworks in place to enable this research and enable achievement of outcomes in a given time frame. So basically, how we have also proposed for a framework to assess the impact of AI. So as I have said earlier, it is a general purpose technology with use cases across sectors. It is there in all the sectors and risk dependent on deployment context. It's a very, very contextualized thing. That's why we need to have a more sectoral approach. The impact assessment is critical for AI response, for ensuring that we have a responsible AI. So whether you have face recognition, whether you have speech recognition or medical diagnosis, in all these use cases, some kind of a framework is required for impact assessment, which then can guide the design guidelines, the acceptable performance, testing protocols. And this is where, the responsible use of AI comes in. This also we feel is a moonshot problem, which several countries can come together to address. And of course, India has a problem of road accidents. And this is something which even the private sector, Intel has launched a program with IIIT, Hyderabad, and various other initiatives have been done. This is also an area which needs a lot of focus. In 2018, we did a hackathon where several ideas came up, but the need is to have a framework where more such problems in the moonshot nature are identified and solutions found out. Coming to responsible AI, I talked about the frameworks. Now we have already released two sets of our report, which is on the NITI website, which maps the way forward in use of responsible AI. The part 1 has laid down 7 principles. I will not go through it. It is there. The reports are there on the website. I'm sure the organizers will share this presentation. The part 2 we have since released the part 2 of the report as well, which talks about operationalizing, and we are already in part 3, which talks about framework. And I was very interested in seeing the framework analysis which Dr. Lee presented. So while we are working on the part 3 of the responsible AI report, I look towards to collaborating with the Korean agencies, whether the research institutes and or others, on how we can come up with frameworks in the Southeast Asian or South Asian context. We can present that to ensure that whatever research comes from the Western world, from the East also, we have equally robust research frameworks presented, which are based on our local conditions. So that is another area of research collaboration which I would like to highlight for consideration of the Korean side. And some of the other areas which I feel can be looked at is reliable identities of proxies, data representativeness and other considerations, and linguistic diversity. So some of these areas are very important, and as I said that we are already discussing frameworks and would like to collaborate on this on this aspect. Now, AI for All Alliance is something which we had mooted earlier, and we are kind of reaching out individually to various countries to see how we can collaborate. NITI Aayog, being the think tank of the Government of India, we have this mandate of providing a platform of bringing various stakeholders together to promote exchange of views, research, knowledge sharing, etc. So this is something again which is of interest to us. And my last slide is there's some areas of collaboration where we feel that the government and research and academia and research institutes can join forces. We can tackle the most audacious challenges in AI together. We need not reinvent the wheel and focus on areas with transformative potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Roy, for sharing your perspectives on artificial intelligence policies in India. You have highlighted on the economic and social benefits of artificial intelligence and how AI for all has been implemented by the NITI Aayog, how the policy paper has come up, and various aspects of that you have highlighted in your presentation. How AI is being used as a tool for inclusive growth in the country. It is focusing on health facilities, financial growth. It is also providing real-time advisory to farmers, and also how we are using it for building up the smart cities. You have also focused on getting into international collaborations and how international AI for All Alliance is looking forward for collaborations. And you are actually, Dr. Lee is also here. Maybe we can further during the open house discussion, we can talk about how further we can have some learning experiences and future collaborations between the two countries. With this, now I just open the floor for discussion. There are some questions in the chat box. We will take that up. But before that, Ms. Roy, I would raise some questions. Let me raise a question related to the skills which are required for adopting in this sector of artificial intelligence, as AI requires highly skilled and trained professionals. But being an emerging technology, the talent pool is limited. So how do you think developing countries are coping up with this challenge? How are these countries attempting to bridge the skill gap?
So while I did not highlight the skilling aspect in my presentation, but the National AI Strategy talks about skilling. Now, the good part of this new technology is that it is not very, I agree with you, skilling gap is a very, very important gap, but then meeting that gap also is not a very time consuming thing. You don't have to be a BTech of 3-year BTech, 2-year MTech. It's not very, very dense kind of technology. Learning this technology also is easier. Secondly, domain knowledge is equally important in this area. So today when we do the blood cancer biobank project, the medical doctors are part of the team. They collaborate with IIT officials. So domain knowledge plays equally important role as the technology part of it. And I think skilling gap is important, but the time frame to meet that gap is much less than many of the previous technology phases that we have seen. And in India, I can say that now we have IITs and specific programs like the Atal Innovation Mission, through its Atal Tinkering Lab. The idea is to create awareness and have the courses. And post-pandemic, especially post-pandemic, the online wave has picked up so much that online also people can pick up. I will give you an example. Somebody approached us some 3 years back when we were doing the paper on blockchain. This girl said that in US she did a bridge course of 3 months, and then after that she was able to get in Google in a very important kind of role where doing actual research. So I think what the governments need to do, is to create awareness. Second, have a very good system in place where we do not fritter it away, and in a very systematic manner include it in the curriculum at various levels, right from the schooling up to the higher levels. Third, have because the potential of commercialization of this technology is very high. And also with this startup kind of a thing, we need to have this very nimble kind of arrangements in academia, where there is more collaboration between academia and research uh, and industry through these startups, and through the universities supporting the startups, more incubators in place, so developing the ecosystem in whole. So I did not touch upon it because that is one area where NITI has not really come out with a very, very clear vision. But in the national strategy, we did touch upon on these aspects of more collaboration, better planning. Blended learning is something which needs to be now focused on. So through these interventions, I feel we can overcome this challenge.
Another very important issue, one of the challenges we can say, this is related to the high implementation cost of the AI-related policies, and how it has become a challenge, especially for the national governments, particularly in the wake of the global pandemic, when the economies are slowing down. How various governments are dealing up with this very important challenge.
So I don't think, it is a high implementation challenge. It is more the procedures, the processes, which really create a problem. That is why what NITI Aayog actually, I had a time constraint, so I could not bring in everything in my presentation. One of the things which NITI Aayog does is to implement pilot projects in various districts. And there we try to identify the implementation challenges which we face on the ground. So I don't think it is so much a funding issue. It is more kind of procedural and other governance challenges that we face. And as I keep saying everywhere, that developing the technology is the easier part. Implementing it, adopting it, the behavioral issues, many other issues, that is where the challenge rests. So we should not link the implementation challenges with specifically finance, but focus on the other aspects. And what we do when we implement a project focused on one particular technology, we bring out a case study which identifies the implementation challenges and also kind of presents a playbook which can be adopted. The second is more or less we are largely at a pilotization stage where we are still doing pilots. Now, as I said, the strategy, national strategy, talks about the governments to be the lead adopters, especially in a country like India, which has health, education, agriculture, all these, in these sectors where we face issues. And in those areas, I feel that, scaling up the adoption, bringing it within the procurement guidelines of the government, so that we can have a large scale adoption, that is the challenge in my view.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. There is another very important question as a commoner that we face, and I'm sure all the other participants must be facing, and these questions must have come to both the panelists. As an expert, you must have faced this, and this also came up in your presentations regarding the ethical issue, ethical and security related issues, and how people are AI leads to the exposure to cyber risks and the privacy issues related to it. So how do you think a balance would be maintained in this sector?
So basically, we are in that phase where we are still identifying. When we started, we also started with the Amazon case. What we referred to in the national strategy is these are very, very important aspects. We cannot, ignore them. But at the same time, technology provides us with a solution to address them. Already there is a lot of research on how to deal with bias in a model. What Dr. Lee presented in the case of Amazon is essentially a bias. Because what are the algorithms? AI algorithms are basically, machine learning and based on data collected on the past. Now, if in the past there were some biases, whether, whether women were not taken or certain race were not, given the job, then using that data for your future analysis will automatically the bias will come in. Now, there are multiple ways of dealing with it, and there is still research going on. And I think we need to look towards technology to address these issues. So that is one thing about bias. Second thing about the problem is about maintaining balance is privacy, which has really come to the forefront. Now, what is privacy? When Cambridge Analytica happened, that was seen as a breach of privacy of the individual's right to have its own data being shared. Cambridge Analytica actually happened because there was lack of awareness, because when you download a particular program, a digital app or any other digital system, you just have this, 8-font, 3-page long terms of agreement, which obviously I don't think anybody goes through. You just say, I agree. You do not read it. So it's a problem of information asymmetry, where as a owner of the data, I am not aware how my data is being used. So the day we are able to address that, the day we are able to bring in transparency, and the need of the hour is bring in trust. So when I spoke about DAPA, the data empowerment and protection architecture, it is actually empowering the individual to have a right over its data to share. Now, if I see value in me sharing my data, I will give a consent. Cambridge Analytica, would not have happened if the data owners were told, look, this is how we are going to share your data. And I would have said, okay, and you can incentivize people. She spoke about, data sharing and incentivizing and various issues in Korea. In India, it is still being done in a sandbox arrangement, but we expect it to be opened up. Now, because of this, we are able to achieve inclusion in a manner which was unheard of in the past. Digital footprint is being used extensively for not only any particular payments and all, but for credit, insurance, and the potential is huge. And that is where the disruption brought in, the positive disruption brought in by the technology comes in. And that is what we need to read through these mechanisms, these frameworks. And that is why I'm saying we need to, have an engagement with Korea and other Southeast Asian countries on how to adopt this framework of DAPA, because that is where what is the future of emerging technology.
Just one last question, which is in the chat box. Are there any enabling policies in India for incoming foreign companies focused on AI technology? This would be the last question.
So I don't think there are any specific policies as such for AI specific, investments. Generally, the policy regime is extremely kind of open for foreign companies to come and work in manufacturing. Actually, in some of the sectors, PLI scheme has also been brought in so that any of the cost disadvantages that are faced, whether it is logistic or any other cost disadvantage that a foreign company faces in India, for that financially the companies are paid under the PLI scheme, which are sector specific. And so I think the regime is extremely open and very, very supportive of foreign companies coming to India and manufacturing. What about the startup, etc., which is more AI kind of a thing, because we are in that phase. I think India and Korea, what can be done is set up joint incubators where the startups can, a Korean startup can come and work here, and Indian startup can go and work in Korea. Have these kind of platforms, which could be virtual incubators for knowledge sharing. And I'm heading this women entrepreneurship platform, And we would love to see if there are similar incubators in Korea, and with whom we can connect, and we can provide that kind of access to a global market through these platforms to our women entrepreneurs. So that is one thing which is already we are doing, and we would like to connect WEP with any of similar such platforms which may be there in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Roy. And this is now to wrap up the session. In fact, we have also exceeded our time limit. It's been a very interesting session, and many important points have come up. Thank you once again to Niti Aayog. Finally, to all the participants for being with us live and making very interesting interventions. Thank you all.